Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the Tefilah Shiur. It's actually 6 weeks since we had a Shiur. And we, more or less, I think, did justice to Birkat Kohanim last time. We did 2 sessions on Birkat Kohanim, which leaves us with one more beracha in the Amidah, in the Shemonah Esrei, or the Chat Esrei, however way you want to look at it, to go through in detail. And that is the beracha of Sim Shalom. Okay. We've got a siddur handy, I suppose. What?
Sim Shalom.
Sim Shalom.
And my siddur just says, oh, I've got even source. Some right.
Apply
English.
Apply piece.
Oh, there's another thing. There's another thing we need to think about, don't we? Sim Shalom and Shalom Rav. Why is it different in Mincha and Ma'ariv and Nusach Ashkenaz, whereas Nusach Sfard only has Sim Shalom all the way through? We might get to that today, or we might not. But
Ma'ariv we have Shalom. Ma'ariv we have a different. Shalom. What do we say? Ma'ariv.
Shalom Rav. Shalom
Shalom
Rav.
Rav. Yeah.
Do we say that in Nusach Sfard, Johnny?
Yeah. Nusach Sfard. Yeah.
No, we don't.
Arvid.
Do we? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Well, in Nusach Ashkenaz, we say Shalom Rav for Mincha and Ma'ariv. What do we say for Nusach Sfard? According to this, we say Sim Shalom for Nusach Sfard.
Okay.
Which is what I thought. And so when you said you say Shalom Rav for Nusach Sfard, that sort of threw me a bit, because as far as I'm aware, Nusach Sfard has Sim Shalom all the way through. You've got an Ashkenaz one there, haven't you, Barbara? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to stick with Sim Shalom for the time being. Sim Shalom.
Shalom Rav in the Koren, definitely.
Koren.
Shalom Rav for Arvid.
Is that Koren for Eretz Yisrael or Koren for
Eretz Yisrael?
Okay, interesting, because the Rinat Yisrael has Sim Shalom.
And on fast days, it says.
Okay, on fast days, you say Sim Shalom. Okay, there's lots to talk about here, isn't there? Now then, there's the 2 versions, Sim Shalom and Shalom Rav. Sim Shalom is a longer and more
Complicated.
more comprehensive, I would say, version. So we'll start with that. And let's just first of all translate the words and see what we make of it. So, Sim, Shalom, Tova, Uvracha. Sim, so the word sim.
Apply. Put.
Place, put, apply, all of those things would be good. Place or apply Shalom, which I'm not going to translate because we're going to go into details of what Shalom is. Put Shalom, Tova, goodness, Ubracha, and blessing.
Yeah.
Then we've got an extra word in Nusach Sfard, Chaim, which is not in Nusach Ashkenaz. Nusach Ashkenaz goes straight into Chain. In Nusach Sfard, what have you got there, Rodney? Have you got Ashkenaz?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Nusach Sfard, you've got Chaim, Chain v'chesed, life, grace, and kindness, v'rachamim, and mercy. So where do we want it to be placed? Aleinu, on us.
Yeah.
V'al kol Yisrael amecha. And on all Israel, your people. So that's an important little phrase there.
Wouldn't it be nice if it would say on all mankind?
There is a famous story told of just about every famous Rav that ever is. And I don't know actually who really it was that said it. I've heard it said in the name of Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. I've heard it said in the name of others as well, that he said that when I was young, I wanted to correct the world. I wanted to improve the world. So as I got older, I realized that I couldn't do that, and I wanted to correct just, my community. I wanted to improve my community. As I got older still, I realized I couldn't do that either, and I was satisfied with improving my own family.
Yeah.
He says, as I got really old, I realized that actually I had enough trouble trying to improve myself. I think, perhaps the answer to that is we have to put our own house in order before we can start doing tikkun olam, of correcting the world, which of course is one of our tasks, is it not? We are meant to be doing tikkun olam, and to a large extent, I think we succeed. I think we succeed in
Tehran.
well, you could argue that is tikkun olam. Yeah, I think that by our behavior, sometimes we are a light unto the nations. Sometimes we're not. But I think we need to put our own house in order first. So we're asking, well, are we asking? We'll come back to that in a minute. The beracha says, place shalom, goodness, blessing, life, grace, kindness, mercy on us and all Israel, your people. Barachenu Avinu. Bless us, our Father. Now, is that significant? Bless us, our Father. What do we normally have when we have Avinu? Malkeinu. Normally go together, don't they? We've seen it many times in here in the Amidah, where Avinu and Malkeinu are juxtaposed. Malkeinu's missing here. It's just Avinu. No, it's always there. No, it's true. I'm asking whether there's any significance in this just having Avinu, and I think there is. And I'll tell you why I think that in a minute. Let's just translate first.
Well, it's because we're at the end now, and you know the Avinu are kind of two different connotations. One is like the farm, one's the king, the strict applier of judgment. And now we're coming out of the Amidah. It's just more like, you know, you're going back to your parents.
Okay. So we need. I think that's an important point. Where are we in the Amidah? Let's just finish the translation and come back to that point of Jeff's, where we are in the Amidah. Let's go straight to the translation. Barachenu Avinu, bless us our Father, kulanu, all of us. Ke'echad, have you got that?
As one.
Right, as one. Bless us as one. Ba'or panecha, with the light of your face.
Countenance.
Ki va'or panecha, because through the light of your countenance, Natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, you, our God, have given to us Torat Chaim, the Torah of life, the Ahavat Chesed, and the love of kindness, Utzdaka, and righteousness, Bracha, blessing, Rachamim, Chaim, B'Shalom, mercy, life, and Shalom, peace. V'tov, and may it be good. V'tov yiyeh beinecha. May it be good in your eyes. Levarachenu. Okay, I'm in Nusach Sfard here. Okay, so let's do Ashkenaz first. Levarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'chol eitu v'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Is that right? Off the top of my head. Okay, Levarech et Amcha Yisrael. To bless all of Israel, v'chol eight, at all times, v'chol sha'ah, and every hour, bishlomecha, with your peace. Now, we've got the extra word here, levarachenu, to bless us. The Ashkenaz, the Sfard says, levarachenu, or levarechit kol amcha Yisrael.
Doesn't say kol, by the way.
You don't have kol? Levarech et amcha Yisrael. Okay, not kol. All right. So we've got some. What have you got?
I've got
No, b'chol eight.
Not kol amcha. We've got in the Sfard, there's levarachenu or levarech et kol amcha Yisrael. All right, so that's what the blessing says. Now let's just go back before we can really.
Used to say Barovos v'Shalom.
Baroz Oath v'Shalom is added into some Nusach Sfard. It's also in Nusach Ari. You're right. I also used to say Baroz Oath v'Shalom.
I still say it. When allowed.
I didn't, because I davened Nusach Ashkenaz. But the Shtibel where I davened in England, do you say Baroz Oath v'Shalom, Johnny, in Vine Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say automatically, yes.
Yeah. So let's, before we actually delve deeply into it, let's go to Jeff's point, which is, where are we in this, in the Amidah? Remember, just to remind ourselves, the Amidah is split up into three sections, isn't it? First three brachot are the introductory brachot of praising Hashem. Then you've got 13 brachot of request. And the last three are taking our leave. thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we went through this in some detail some time ago. It's basically take your leave of your master. We're going backwards. We're our 3 steps back at the end of it and everything. The last 3 brachot are the taking of our leave. So this is the final part of the goodbye, right? It's the final part of the goodbye. Now, it's a bit odd if you look at it, because Sim Shalom seems to be a request, doesn't it? Place peace. If you had a please in there, it would help, maybe. Simna.
It's grant, the translation, grant.
Art Scroll
It's
says
still the same thing, isn't it?
establish.
It's still asking for it to be granted peace.
Or a request.
Still a request. Grant is still a request.
Art Scroll says establish peace.
Okay, establish peace, but he's still asking for peace.
Yeah,
He's still
yeah.
asking. It seems to me that on the face of it, we're asking for something. So we're asking for a lot, actually, aren't we? We're asking for what we're asking for: Tova, Bracha, Chaim, Chaim, Chesed, Rachmim, all of those things. It seems in the wrong place, doesn't it? It's not a leave taking. It's not a leave taking. Should be in the 13.
Yeah.
So what we need
The summary.
Okay, all right. You could argue that this is a summary, a wrap up of the whole thing. Oh, and maybe, I mean, it just occurred to me that something that I learned not in medical school, but in my first year as a trainee GP, it was in the 1980s, and there was a new sort of a new discipline had come out, which was called the consultation. And we were taught, like, up until then, you just did the consultation, what came naturally. Here, they broke it down into techniques for consultation. How you sat your chair, and how you sat the patient's chair, and how you started a consultation. So it was all the rage in the 80s. And the particular guy that we had was very reflective. You had to be reflective. So, you'd sort of say, and what do you think might be the problem? I could never get into this. I mean, wait, what? Am I asking the patient what I think the problem is? Will you come to me for my advice? I'm not interested in what you think. Anyway, it wasn't quite like that. But anyway, so this guy would say, you'd say, what time is it? And he would say, well, what time do you think it is? So we reflected back.
You sound like House MD.
So anyway, so one of the things that we were taught in this whole discipline of the consultation was that, generally speaking, patients only remembered the first thing you say and the last thing you say, right? So Paul's idea that this is a wrap-up, it's almost as if we're saying to God, now don't forget, because what we were taught to do was, if we had given medication, let's say you're given antibiotics, right? 1-3 times a day for a week. As the patient had their handle on the door and they'd already said goodbye, you would say, don't forget, 1-3 times a day for a week. And then if they forgot everything else, at least they'd remember the instructions. So that was sort of something, so maybe that's what's going on here. Don't forget, God, these are all the things we want. Could be. But I think there's another way of looking at it. Clearly, shalom, peace. What do we understand by peace, generally speaking? How would you define peace? Shalom.
Friendly with everybody else.
Okay.
What? Solidarity.
Friendly with everybody else. Solidarity. Paul, how would you define peace?
Having no difficult influences on you.
Having no
Difficult influences on you.
Having no difficult influences on you. Okay. Jeff, how would you define peace?
Well, no enemies.
Okay, no enemies. Okay, that's I want to concentrate on that one. Rodney, have you got something else to offer?
Just absence of conflict.
Absence of conflict. Okay, that I think is what most people would, if you had time to think about it and work it out would understand peace to be, in some ways, a little bit of a negative, because it's the lack of conflict. I think, whereas we think of peace, and when you actually stop and think, well, what is peace? Right now, peace for us would be a lack of conflict, wouldn't it? You know, lack of conflict. Lack of conflict. Well, this is what we're asking for. We're asking for everlasting peace. But the peace that we would be davening for now is a different type of peace that we would have been davening for 14 months ago. Okay, 14 months ago, we would have been davening for peace between Klal Yisrael, right? Peace between one another, right? Because 14 months ago, we were tearing ourselves apart with the judicial nonsense, right? Now, when we're davening for peace, we're davening for a completely different thing. So it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting that peace, which we all think we understand, actually is got all sorts of, I mean, just around this table, we've had 3 at least different definitions and
Very context specific.
yes, it's context specific. That's true. So it's clearly correct that peace, at least one element of peace, is the absence of conflict. I mean, that would be ridiculous to say otherwise. We've just finished learning Kohelet. Chapter 3 of Kohelet, verse 8 says, a time for war and a time for peace. It's clearly that peace is the absence of war to a degree. But it's not just that, I think. We need to go deeper than that. The fact that we are in this beracha of, or this section of brachot of hodaya, of thanking, right? Started with modim, right? Started with modim. What does modim mean? We thank you. Same word as todah. Modim anachnu lach. We thank you. And it also means we acknowledge you. We admit. To be moda also means to admit, but it means to thank. So it's here right at the end of this hodaya section, and so the other things apart from peace that we're asking for.
Sorry, there's another aspect which is something we refer to as inner peace. It's peace within yourself.
Okay.
To be able to find your.
Also, it's connected to Birkat Kohanim, Johnny.
It is connected to Birkat Kohanim. I'm coming to that in a sec. Let's just finish with
your peace with yourself.
Right.
Last one.
Jeff says that we could be talking here about inner peace. And I think that's very, very true. Because what is this Tefilah that we're finishing off here? It is a very private prayer, is it not? This is the prayer that we as individuals silently are saying to our God. Okay? We are saying this silently. The Chazarat Hashatz is a b'diavad. It's only there for those who couldn't do it on their own. Right? That was what the repetition of the Amidah is all about. It's there for those who don't know how to do it themselves, and so as not to embarrass those that didn't know it themselves. It was done publicly for everybody. So I can stand there and listen, we all seen them, haven't we? We all know people who were stood there as if they're saying Shemonah Esrei, and we know they haven't a clue what they're saying because they can't read, right? But you stand there. That's why Chazarat Hashatz came out. It's meant to be a private prayer between you and your maker. One sec. So Jeff's point of inner peace makes perfect sense that we should be asking for that shalom. And if you look at what does it say? Yes.
Yeah, this is inclusive of everybody.
Inclusive of everybody, but
Still aleinu.
aleinu, on us. I'll call Yisrael Amecha. No, the whole of the Amidah is in plural. We've been through that because we are, all one people. But I think that the point that Jess made of inner peace is a very, very important point here. Because let's go back to Johnny's point, which is that it's connected to Birchat Kohanim. It's clearly connected to Birchat Kohanim. What is Birchat Kohanim all about? It's the blessing of Vayasem Lecha Shalom. That's what we lead up to. Birchat Kohanim, first is Yorech L'na Hashem V'Yishmerecha, 3 words. Yah Adonai Panav Elech V'Yichuneka, 5 words. Yisa Adonai Panav Elech V'Yasem Lecha Shalom, 7 words. It's a pyramid. And the top of the pyramid, or the bottom of the pyramid, is Shalom. That's the peak of this bracha, the pinnacle, is peace. Now, look at the middle part of that bracha, of the Birchat Kohanim. Ya'er, what does that mean? Ya'er.
He should
Shine. And what is in our bracha?
Oh.
Kiva or panecha. The Birchat Kohanim says, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha. Our bracha, it's just saying the same thing. It says it in different words. Ki barachenu avinu, bless us our Father, kulanu ke'echad, all of us together, ba'or panecha, with the light of your countenance. Exactly the same thing as Birchat Kohanim. So it is very clearly connected to Birchat Kohanim. Now, one sec, Rodney. One sec. Birchat Kohanim is vayasem lecha in the singular. Okay? Vayasem lecha, where you'd expect it to be plural because they're blessing the whole of the people. Vayasem lecha shalom. I take that to mean to give me. And when the Kohen is blessing me, v'yasem lecha shalom, with this pinnacle of this bracha being peace, I'm taking that as personal inner peace. I'm not taking that. I don't know how you think of it when the Kohen's blessing you. I'm there with my tallis over my head, close my eyes, and hoping for inner peace, for whatever it is that's troubling me on that particular day, whatever it is. I'm asking for inner peace. So
Is that not singular?
yes, that's right. They are saying lecha for you, singular peace. And so I think, yeah, that is singular. So it's very much, Johnny, you're right. It's very much connected with Birchat Kohanim. So yes, Philip, you wanted to say something.
To go back to the Chazaros Hashatz, just a question that I've been asking myself because I've been hearing it recently, and I think mainly from Sfardi Balei Tefilah, Shlichei Tzibur, that they say Hashem's Sfatei Tiftach Ufi Agitelah.
That is
loud.
Yes, that is the
We never do that.
No, that is the Sephardi minhag.
Okay.
There is a chiluk there. There is a difference between the Sephardi minhag.
Few Americans do it.
What?
I say quite a few Americans. I've noticed.
Nusach Ashkenaz is to say it quietly.
Yeah.
And to begin loud at Baruch. Nusach, not Nusach Sfarad necessarily, but the Minhag HaSfaradim. There's a difference between Ashkenazim and Sfaradim. I'm not talking about the difference between Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfarad now. This is why it's so confusing. I really wish they had not called Nusach Sfarad. If they'd have called it Nusach HaChasidim, that would have been much more, which is what it is, because it started with the Chasidim. Nusach Sfarad started with the Chasidim. Yeah. They've really confused everybody by calling it Nusach Sfarad. So the minhag of the Sfaradim is to say Hashem Sefzai Tiftach out loud. Okay? So it's not that they're doing it wrong. And I'll tell you something else which is interesting, and I only learned this very recently here in the shul. There's a guy who's a Kohen here, a French chap, called Gerard Rosenzweig. Gerard, you know the guy? He sits over here, yeah, and he's clearly a very knowledgeable fellow and a pious fellow. Yeah. And he doesn't always duchen. I don't know what his thing is. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. There's obviously reasons. Anyway, the first time that I heard him duchen here, he said Yivarechacha before the chazan.
Oh, yeah?
And I thought, bloody idiot, right? That's what I thought. Does he not know? He's been a Kohen for, he's older than me. He's been a Kohen for a long time. Does he not know? I thought, that's a bit odd. Anyway,
so you asked him?
No, I looked it up. And there is a minhag of the Sfaradim that the Kohen begins Yavarechacha. Now he knows that we don't do it here. And so now he does it the way we do it. But I thought he was making a mistake.
He just says the one word.
He says Yavarechacha, and then he starts it off.
And then he says Hashem v'yishmerecha.
He says Yivarecha before the chazan, and then he goes after the chazan. But that was the first time he did it because obviously where he comes from, that is that minhag of I mean he's French, so I suspect he's probably
Ashkenaz. Rosenzweig is Ashkenaz.
The name is Ashkenaz, yeah, but I don't know. Anyway, it was interesting that I jumped to a conclusion that he didn't know what he was doing, and actually. Yes, it was a good lesson for me that, it happened. Another thing, similar thing happened to me. I've been a mile for 34 years, right? So I thought, I've learned pretty much what I thought there was to learn about Mila. somebody invited me here to a Brit Yitzchak. Well, I didn't like to say that. I didn't know what it was. I had no clue what it was. I'm on a WhatsApp group with another 100 and odd Moalim, right, who are all, as it so happens, nearly all Ashkenazim.
Called Jack the Ripper.
Anyway, so no, it's an interesting group. We debate all sorts of things, whether you should do mitzvah b'per and techniques. And it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I put on this group, does anybody know what a Brit Yitzchak is? And didn't get any responses until a little bit later. One of the Sephardim answered, yeah, he says it's the equivalent of what you lot call Wachnacht. Right?
What's Vachta?
Wachnacht, because you stay awake at night.
Yeah.
Wachnacht. They stay awake at night, learning the night before the bris. Well, the Sephardim do a similar thing, but of course they have food and drink, and they make it much more. No, for the father of the baby. So, but the point is, I've been a mile for 34 years. There was 100 mile in there. None of us knew what it was. Why? Because we live in our little bubbles of Ashkenaz, and that's one of the beauties of being here, and particularly in our community here, which is not so homogenous.
Very eclectic.
We are eclectic, and we're pretty heterogeneous, really, and we've got all sorts. So I find that really refreshing, and I found it very enlightening. How did we get onto that? Oh yeah, Hashem Society of Talk. That answers your question. Rodney, you were going to say something. It is all in the singular. And you'd expect it to be in the plural, wouldn't you? Birchat Kohanim, because what are the Kohanim doing? They're blessing everybody. Everybody. So why is it in the singular? Because the Kohen is meant to feel, how does he bless the people? What's the last word of his bracha? Be'ahava. Be'ahava. He's meant to have that individual love for each of us. And that's why it's in the singular. And I think we mentioned this either last time or the time before. If there is a machlokas between a Kohen and one of the people in the community, one of them should step out because he cannot bless them ba'ahava. So I think that's why, David Coleman wants to come into the group. There we go, let him in. That's why I think that's in the singular. But I personally take it very personally. I take the Birchat Kohanim very personally. V'yasem lecha shalom. And I'm asking for or imagining that I'm getting the blessing of inner peace. So I think inner peace that Jeff mentioned before is definitely part of this bracha. Okay, now.
Consistent with absence of inner conflict.
Okay, it's an absence of inner conflict. I agree. It's still absent. Nobody's saying that shalom is not absence of conflict. It is absence of outer conflict that we're worried about right now. That's the kind of peace that we're all praying for. Inner conflict, which, we'll all have from time to time. We want that to disappear and will give us peace. I agree. What we need to just mention, though, is that because this is not in the section of bakashot, of requests, that we're not asking for something. What we're asking for is an attitude of God towards us. Okay? Because all the other things, tova, vracha, chayim, chein, chesed, rachamim, these are not tangible things. We've already asked for the tangible things, dat, refuah, parnosa, lam al shinim, get rid of the rain, exactly. We've asked for all of those things. At this point, as we take our leave, we're taking our leave and we're asking for, as it were, the king to look favorably upon us. That's how we should be looking at this bracha. And then if you look at it in that respect, and now go back and look at the words again. Sim shalom tova vracha chaim chen v'chesed rachmim. Sim shalom. If we're asking Hashem, have an attitude of peace towards us. In other words, lack of conflict. Have an attitude where we are at peace with you. That's what we want when we take our leave of somebody. I remember reading something that I can't remember where I read it, that the secret of a good marriage is never to go to bed cross with one another, right? Whatever it is you've argued about, sort it out before you go to bed, right? So that you don't take your leave, as it were, of somebody. And that's the same thing with here. We're taking our leave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of the Shemonah Esrei. We want there to be peace, lack of conflict, if you like, between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We want an attitude of peace. And with that attitude of peace will come automatically beracha, chaim, chen, v'chesed, v'rachamim. Aleinu, on all of us, v'al kol Yisrael amecha. And that's where we get this. There's this idea, and the next bit as well. Baruchenu Avinu, kulanu ke'echad. What is this bracha about? It's about unity. Kulanu, all of us, ke'echad, like one. Where do we see that expression, ke'echad?
Shema. Shema.
Ish echad, belev echad. One man with one heart. Where was that, Barbara? Where was that? Where do you read that? Where do you know that from? It is from the giving of the Ten Commandments. It is Rashi on the pasuk Vayichan Sham Yisrael. Again, singular and plural. Vayichan Sham Yisrael, and there Israel camped in the singular. Vayichan is singular. Or it should have said Vayachanu. And
The most
Rashi,
famous one is in the Shema, Johnny.
sorry.
The most famous echad is in the Shema.
Of course, yes, that's right. But here, that's Hashem is echad. Here we're talking about the people is echad.
Yeah.
And so Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Rashi says there, ki ish echad, belev echad, like ish echad, like one man with one heart. In other words, there was unity. Halavai. So what we're praying for is unity. Al kol Yisrael amecha, baruchenu avilinu, kulanu ke'echad. It's a prayer for unity. That is what we're praying for. It's not for a specific thing like dat or rain or refuah or parnasa or all those things that we've done. This is not that. It's not in that section. It's in the section of attitude. And we are praying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows us and helps us. How's he going to help us?
Shining his light on.
But or panecha, by shining his light of his face upon us. Now then, go back to Birkat Kohanim. How did the Kohanim bless us? Last word, ba'ahava. So this or panecha is connected to the Birkat Kohanim. Birkat Kohanim says, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha. And the whole thing is about ahava. The Kohanim have to have ahava for the people. The people are all being blessed together and here. So this Sim Shalom is not necessarily, I don't see this at all as asking for peace from our enemies. I do now at the moment when we're in a war, obviously. But generally speaking, I see this bracha as a bracha for unity, for lack of conflict amongst the people. Kulanu ke'echad. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha. It's a blessing or a request, if you like, or a request for attitude of Hashem, so that we will be in unity. Yes, you wanted to say something?
The concept of the absence of something is actually a positive. And that's what I think Rabbi Granov was saying about the absence of work being a positive.
Yeah.
Rest. So the absence of something seems to be a negative, but it's actually conceptually.
Yeah,
a
okay.
positive.
I need to just say that out loud for the recording because they won't have picked up your voice from that. Rodney said that Rav Yuval in his drasha last Shabbat was talking about the concept of Yom HaShvi. Vayechulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzva'am vayechalelim b'yom HaShvi'i melachto. Okay. So we've said Vayechulu hashamayim va'aretz v'chol tzva'am vayechal Elohim b'yom HaShvi'i. God finished his work on the seventh day. Is that true? No, he finished it on the sixth day. Right? So why does it say Vayechal Elohim b'yom HaShvi'i?
Assuming that the rest is not part of
Okay, so what Rav Yuval was saying was that the menucha was actually not, the rest was not an absence of work, because if it was just an absence of work,
It was an
that sentence
additional
wasn't
creation.
right. It would have been Vayachal Elohim b'yom hashishi.
Yeah.
But Vayachal b'yom hashvi, what was the last thing? What was the last thing he
It
created?
was another act of
Was
creation, Shabbat.
menucha.
Yeah.
So menucha, rest, is a positive. It's not just the lack of work. It's actually a positive thing. Now, we've all felt that, haven't we? We know that on Shabbat, right? Shabbat is not just a lack of work. Holiday is a lack of work. You go on holiday and you leave your office behind, if you're lucky enough to do that. Probably these days you take it with you on a laptop. But in the olden days, right, you'd go to Blackpool, where I came from, or Brighton, where you come from, or wherever. Right? Bournemouth, that was posh. Okay. So you go to the seaside and you leave your work behind. Okay, that's not Shabbat. Shabbat has got something extra that you feel that kedusha, you feel that menucha. And what Rav Yuval was saying is that the fact that it says Vayachal Elohim b'yom hashvi, he finished on the seventh day. He did, because he created that menucha. That menucha is not just a lack of work; it's a positive thing. Light or darkness. What's darkness? The absence of light. Okay, but light is not the absence of dark. No, light is something that's got mamashot. It's got something to it. Tangible. So here, this shalom is not just lack of conflict. It is lack of conflict, but it's not just lack of conflict. It's that positive thing that is difficult to sort of put into words, in the same way, if you like, this is to that as that is to that, Menucha is to the weekday as shalom is to conflict, right? It's not just the lack of conflict, it's something extra, okay? Something positive. It's an attitude. And that's what we want God to give us. And of course, we want him, have a look at this, the next bit. Because, ba'or panecha, with the light of your face or your countenance, natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat Chaim. Through the brightness of your face, we have been granted Torat Chaim. Not just Torah, Torat Chaim. What is Chaim?
Life.
Yeah, it's life. Again, what is life? Is life just the absence of death? No. Death is possibly the absence of life. But life is not just the absence of death. Life, if it is just the absence of death, it's a pretty poor life, right? It's a pretty poor life. I mean, there are people, Nebuch, whose life is just about the absence of death. But for everybody else that's, living and breathing and thinking and speaking, etc., Chaim is more than the absence of death. It's something positive. So it's that we're asking for. It's that gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which makes everything worthwhile, if you like. It's that menucha on Shabbat. It's that shalom, which is not just a lack of conflict, and it's that chayim, which is not just a lack of death. These are all attitudes, okay? They're all attitudes that we need. We are asking that God's countenance shine on us so that we can have these things. Now, we say in the Birchat Kohanim, going back to the Birchat Kohanim, which of course is intimately connected to this, not just with the words, but exactly where it is. Where is Birchat Kohanim? I always used to think that Birchat Kohanim came immediately after Ulachana El Hodot, which it does. But there's another way of looking at it, isn't there? It comes before Sim Shalom. And it's interesting because I never thought of it like that. I always thought of it's before the bracha of Sim Shalom. Before you,
you say the bracha and then you say Sim Shalom. It's in that in between space.
Yeah, because that bracha's finished now. Bracha ta Hashem and lechana lehodot. That's done. Now we're starting the next bracha, which is Sim Shalom, but it begins with Birchat Kohanim. So I incorrectly, in my mind, connected Birchat Kohanim to the previous bracha, when actually it's not. It's very obviously connected to Sim Shalom. The words are the same even. And the position is there. So this whole thing of Birchat Kohanim, of asking of God to bless us through the Kohanim, is this summary bracha. And I think that's where Paul's point earlier on is that it's a summary actually fits in very well. Because when we when all said and done, what is the peak? We've said it before, the pinnacle is Shalom. If you were asked for one thing in your life, you could choose one thing. What would it be? It would be inner peace. Right? No point having, millions of pounds if you don't have any inner peace. There's no point having, wonderful children if you don't have inner peace. There's no point having anything if you don't have inner peace. The one thing, I believe, the thing that everybody would choose if they were given one thing to choose would be inner peace, because that encompasses everything. If you're at peace.
That's a spiritual thinking person. If you speak to somebody who's a total gashmias person, they say, give me money. That they're not looking for inner peace. They don't even know what inner peace
Well, that's
is.
it, yeah, because they don't know what it
What
is.
about people who are looking for love?
Well, it's the same thing, no?
Is love and inner peace the
I
same
think
thing?
so. I don't think you can have one without the other. And then we go on, and it says, "V'tov yeh beinecha." It should be good in your eyes. What does that mean? It's an attitude thing again, isn't it? How do you say in Hebrew, I like this?
Motze chen beinai.
Motze chen beinai. Translate, motze, it finds, chen, favor, beinai, in my eyes. So, beinecha is very much an attitudinal thing. How do you say in Hebrew, somebody, a mean person?
Kampzan?
Ayin ra, somebody who has a bad eye, we say in Pirkei Avot.
Yeah.
How do you say somebody who has a good attitude to other people?
Tov.
Ayin tov, right? Ayin is very much an attitudinal word. So, v'tov yiyeh beinecha, and let it be good in your eyes, Hashem. To do what? Levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol eit u'b'chol sha'ah bishlomecha. What's bishlomecha?
In your peace.
With your peace. What does that mean? Why not just say b'shalom? Why bishlomecha?
Because your peace is the ultimate peace.
Oh, okay. Okay. So your peace can only be the peace of God, obviously, is by definition the ultimate peace. God's not going to have a rubbish peace, is he? God's going to have the best car and the best house and the best peace, right? So bishlomecha, we want that as that. So what we're asking for here is in this bracha, when we say our goodbyes, as it were, when we're just about to take our 3 steps back and leave the presence of the Almighty, we are asking for the thing which summarizes everything else that we want, inner peace, and one other thing as well. And we've mentioned it already. Unity. Unity. Harmony amongst the people. That is what we're asking for. I'm not making this up. Look at the words. Sim shalom tova bracha chaim v'chetz berachim aleinu, on us, v'al kol Yisrael amecha, and on all your people Israel. Now you could argue that that means everybody should have their own inner peace. I can be at inner peace with me and I can still hate you, right? No, you can't. If I'm at inner peace with me, there is no conflict, right? It's lack of any conflict. So Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha is a request for peace. And if that doesn't tell you what it is, Baruchenu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad. We said it. It's a request for unity. This is the bracha, the one bracha which will result in our salvation. Everything comes, as we have seen in the last 18 months. Everything either comes or falls apart based on unity or lack of unity. when the Jewish people it's 18 months, it's more than 18 months since we fragmented on the judicial reforms.
That's much more.
Right, well, however long it is, right? So
And then we had unity at the beginning of the war.
we did.
Yeah, so 5 minutes.
There was a surface unity phase, surface
As long as we
unity.
have guys like Norman Finkelstein, I don't know if you guys know.
Oh, we don't need self-hating Jews.
He's
So
the worst.
so here, what we are asking for, what we are saying, as we take our leave of Hashem, we're saying everything that we've just asked for in the last 18 brachot, it can be summed up by unity and inner peace, and individual inner peace. If we're granted that, automatically we get everything else. It has to be. One sec. So therefore, what Paul's comment earlier on, that this is a summary bracha, I don't know if that's really what you meant by it, but I think it's spot on, because this is a summary. Because if you have unity amongst the Jewish people, and each person has inner peace, that is the ultimate. I don't necessarily understand the concept of Mashiach, the person, but that is what you might call a Mashiach Zeit, a time of Mashiach, a time where, what do we say the Mashiach will be? The lion will lie down with a lamb and all that kind of stuff, or whatever it is, and there'll be no more war, etc. That's what Mashiach Zeit, Mashiach time is all about. And what we're praying for is unity amongst the Jewish people and inner peace. And that is how we take our leave of God. So it's almost as if he said, like, hand on the door, don't forget 1 tablet 3 times a day for a week, right? It's almost like you're saying to God, it doesn't matter if you forget everything else I've said, just give me the unity amongst the Jewish people and inner peace. That's what I think this is bracha is about. Yes, Rodney.
So the last line, the full 8 and the full sha'ah, isn't that repeating?
Okay, so what's the difference? Rodney says v'chol eitu v'chol sha'ah. Is that just a bit of poetry, right? We have tautology, don't we? It's part of poetry, isn't it? I don't know. Let's think about it. 8 and sha'ah. Okay, 8 is a period of time. Sha'ah is a specific point in time.
Yeah, all of it.
I think there's lots of sha'ot in 8, right? So I'm on the hoof here, so I'm not sure this is going to make sense, but let's try. Can you have a situation where overall, yes, you can. I can say overall, somebody said, how was your Yom Tov, Rodney? It was okay, thank you very much. Overall, it was okay. Yeah, you had 8 days of Yom Tov. If I said to you, was every single moment of your Yom Tov great? You might say, no, there was a certain point where I didn't feel so well, I'd eaten too much, or, somebody said something that upset me, or I didn't like the chazan, or, when we were doing the hakofas, it went on a bit too long, or I got a bit upset when we were speaking about the hostages. Maybe not every single moment. And then maybe that's the difference. The 8 is the overall, and the sha'ah, b'chol 8 or b'chol sha'ah. Every moment we'd like to have this inner peace. It's a big ask. It's a big ask. Maybe, I don't know. That's just an on the hoof answer to your question. Okay. Then Baruch atah Hashem, blessed is Hashem, ha-mevarech et amo Yisrael Shalom. Now, how do you translate that? Blessed are you, Hashem. We know what that means. We've been through that all the time. What we mean, blessed that he needs our blessing. No, we're acknowledging, Hashem, you are the one who has the ability. Ha-mevarech. Mevarech is an active verb. It's a verb. You are the one who has the ability to bless et amo Yisrael, his people, ba shalom, with that word peace, ba shalom. Now,
another technique that
why is it amo and not amcha? his people. Blessed are you, Hashem, who has the ability to bless his people.
Because you address somebody who's superior.
Well, that doesn't work, Philip, because
like,
it wouldn't.
Like the Queen, like when
You'd say, yeah,
don't
you'd say Her
I,
Majesty.
She says we.
No.
You're saying it in the third person.
You're saying the third person, which we're not doing here. We're saying Baruch Atah Hashem. So that's not an answer. Why is it Hamvarech et Amo Yisrael and not Amacha Yisrael? Don't know. Good question. We'll have a look and see if I can find something over the next week. We do have differences, by the way, in davening. If you look in, for example, just occurs to me the bracha of Barech Aleinu. Barech Aleinu. Where are we? Barech Aleinu Adonai Aleinu Shashana Azod Let Kol Minei Tzuvua Ta. Right? Yes. Some versions. What have you got there? In Barech Aleinu. What have you got in your Nusach Ashkenaz? Tuata. What have you got in the Saks? Tuata. There are some versions that have got Tuatecha. Your goodness, your produce. And another one. Alpaneha Damaba Sabenu Me Too. What have you got? What have you got, Barbara? Same bracha. V'sabeinu me too. Okay, Barbara has got in the Nusach Ashkenaz me too vecha. Johnny, what have we got in Sfard?
Me too va.
Me too va. So v'sabeinu and satisfy us me too va in Nusach Sfard from its goodness, meaning the land. Okay, al panei ha'adama, right? The subject is the land. And in the Nusach Ashkenaz v'sabeinu me too vecha. We're saying to God, satisfy us from your goodness. You've got me tuva. That's Art Scroll. Saks Koren. Saks Koren says tuva, and Saks England says tuvecha. That's interesting.
And Tefilah Hashem, which is basically.
Which is Ari, Nusach Ari.
But it's tuvecha.
Tuvecha, interesting. Okay, so there you go. So you can. Amo Amcha, don't know is the answer to that. They seem to be, Right, we've got 5 minutes left. I want to just have. We started at 7:30. If in doubt, Faye, read the instructions.
Shalom must be the most used word every day, isn't it, Johnny?
Huh?
Shalom must be the most used word every day in Israel.
Shalom, yes, shalom. Hello, shalom, goodbye. Right, let's just.
We always got peace and we never get it.
Let's just have a last 5 minutes. Maybe we'll go into it in a bit more detail next week. If we get through, we're going to do Shalom Rav next week and the differences. But I just want to talk about Elokai Netzor, which is the afterword, if you like. Yeah. It's the sort of epilogue. Is that an epilogue? Yeah, epilogue. Yeah, the epilogue of Shemonah Esrei. It's Elokai Netzor. It's not part of the Shemonah Esrei. The Shemonah Esrei, or the Amidah, to give it its correct title, ends with Bashalom. Okay. The Elokai Netzor, which is different in Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfard, by the way, was a later addition.
It's a private prayer, isn't it?
Ratzon.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a more private prayer.
Is only if you're not saying Elokai Netzor. So in other words, at the end of the Chazor Tashatz, because what you're going to say at the end of Elokai Netzor, Yila Ratzon. I'm going to say it twice. So Elokai Netzor was a later addition. Who put together the Shemonah Esrei, the Amidah? Anshe Knesset Agdolah, who lived around
3rd, 4th century.
No, earlier. End of the first temple times, beginning of end of the
Second temple.
end of the second temple, end of the second temple era. So the last years of the before the Sphira and the first century after the Sphira, they put together the prayers. Elokai Netzor comes from a later time, the Talmudic time, later on, several hundred years later. Now, if you look in the Gemara, no, we haven't got time to do it now. Maybe we'll do it next time. If you look in the Gemara, I'd intended to do this, but we'll obviously not got around to it today. We'll have a look next time in Gemara Brachot 16b. Very interesting, because a whole bunch of rabbis there give their different versions of the epilogue to the Shemonah Esrei. And we happened to choose the one of Rabbi Eliezer. We'll see when we look in the Gemara next week. His one is the one that we choose. Now, and that's why there's differences, because some different nusachot have incorporated different bits. Nuschaot have incorporated different bits of different things. So the Elokai Netzor is not part of the Shemonah Esrei. And in fact, there is a halachic difference, importance to this, because if you are in the middle of your Amidah and it comes to Kedusha, right? Let's say you're slow in your silent Shemonah Esrei, the Chazan has started his repetition and he gets to Kedusha, right? And you're still in Shemonah Esrei. What you meant to do? Stop, and you don't say it. You just stop and listen. You don't answer Kadosh Kadosh. You don't answer anything. You just stop and listen. And when he gets to Kela Kadosh, Baruch Atam Hashem Kela Kadosh, you carry on where you left off. If, however, you've got to Hamvarechet Amo Yisrael Bashalom, then you can say and you're now no longer in Shemonah Esrei. You haven't said Elokai Netzor yet. Then you do answer to Kedusha. Okay, so if you finish Bashalom and they're at Kedusha, you can say that sentence of Yehi L'Ratzon and you can answer Kedusha, and you should answer Kedusha, because Elokai Netzor is not part of the Shemonah Esrei. So there is a halachic relevance, that's the word I was looking for, a halachic relevance to the fact that Elokai Netzor is not part of the Shemonah Esrei. It's an
then you go back and say it, do you?
Yeah, once you finish Kedusha, you go back and you carry on where you left off, which is Elokai Netzor. Yeah. So there is that halachic relevance to that. Okay, time's up. Doesn't time fly when you're enjoying yourself? We'll try again next week at 7:30, please God. And just for my own reminder, because I'll have a look at this recording just before I start to prepare, we're going to talk about the other beracha of Shalom, Shalom Rav, why we, Nusach Ashkenaz, say that for Mincha and Ma'ariv, and why in Nusach Ashkenaz we don't say it on a fast day. We say Sim Shalom on a fast day. Why? Okay, those are the things we're going to discuss next week. But Ezrat Hashem. Any questions from the Zoomers? No? Any questions in the room? No? Okay, in that case, Laila Tov, everybody.
My father-in-law always used to say, if they don't know whether to say Sim Shalom or Shalom Rav, how do you expect to be peace in the world? He always used to say that. His favourite saying.
Hello.
What's that? A cockroach?
We've got a very nice big cockroach here. Right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Johnny. Ta-da.